Hello, friends. We go to our next episode 11 of the geopolitical, economic, technological, social environment. Uh, the focus remains India, but we do look at geo events and see their impact. While analyzing those events, especially if they're live, we can also see how the issues develop, what kind of impacts those, let's say, wars or conflicts or new technologies have on the others, and how it will impact in your organization, how it will impact in your personal life, how it will impact on the personal life of the other citizens. So let's pick up the thread from the monsoon parliament session, which also had a no confidence motion, which was prorogued. That means session was closed yesterday on 11th August. A number of bills were passed, but most of the time the opposition walked out. These bills relate to various professions like dentists, and nurses, and management. There was an IIM's bill also. There was bill on biodiversity. And finally, last but not the least, were three bills introduced yesterday on reforming the criminal justice in India by relooking at the laws which were passed in British Parliament in the 1860s. Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code, and the Indian Evidence Act. Along with that, there was something about sedition, though nobody has been pursued for sedition in the last 40 years, to reform that particular act. Now, that discussion started yesterday, but it seems it's not completed. And government, to be fair, would like the opposition to participate in these things, and that will come up later. So now slowly we will see, in terms of ease of doing business, things should improve. That is what the law says. Now in implementation, what happens or not happens is a different matter. Biodiversity will be protected. On field, what happens or doesn't happen, because many of these laws remain on the books because nobody does training programs for the people. Now, even if the parliamentarians don't attend the parliament, then they also will not know what the law is. So the life goes on as it has been going on. There was a major issue of Manipur, which was tackled by the government and is being tackled by the government. And the finance minister reviewed all the major developments in India, and her figures show that both on social and economic parameters, the growth has been very substantial. Now, in a country like ours, the problems are also there. During this period of 9 years of the of the NDA rule, the digitization has been a major input. So the technology input has been there, which has made possible the direct benefit transfers, largest number in the world. It has made possible digital payments, and did 650 crore digital transactions last year, by far the largest number anywhere in the world. And those technologies, for the first time coming from a quote-unquote developing country, are now being adopted by the developed countries like US and Canada and England or UK, Singapore, etc. Now, once these economies adopt them, obviously the other developing country economies will also adopt it faster. Now, this is becoming the umbrella under the IMF. Now, there is a second strand of developments, that the development financial institutions like IMF and World Bank have been under pressure from the global south. Now, global south meaning basically the poorer and middle income countries of the south part, not the north. North is all the west, and this is non-west, if you see the globe. Then, and the major objection is that multilateral institutions, by putting their strong conditions, actually end up killing a lot of social programs by making them undeveloped. Their companies, their businesses, their resources going in the hands of capitalists in the name of bringing capital in. And obviously, they are in a bad shape, just like we have the example of Pakistan and Sri Lanka close by. So you have to give $1 billion or $2 billion and you don't have it. So you have to accept conditionalities of increasing the taxes, let us say on oil, which increases the food prices. And so the political class has a tough problem of handling these things. They have started resorting to coming to neighbors like Pakistan, gone to Gulf and China, Sri Lanka come to India to bail them out, while the development institutions are not bailing them out. Now, coming to the projects, it is a similar thing. The projects are at so-called subsidized low rates, but that is always some portion. Even if it is all of the portion, the rate of interest is low. Then, if you compare it to the rate of interest in their own countries, like Europe and Japan and USA, there you hardly get 1% as a net return of doing whatever, and most of the time savings deposits are without any return. Having said this, the real crunch comes when your value of rupee, value of ruble, value of Sri Lankan rupee, Pakistani rupee, Indonesian rupee starts going down, which means the number of rupees you have to give to get $1 keeps on increasing. Now, all these things put together have created two pressures. On one hand, that these multilateral institutions should reform, and the other is development of parallel institutions. We will cover both of them. And India is kind of in between this. First, referring to the G20 summit, which is coming, which India is chairing, the finance ministers, Secretary of Treasury US, and the heads of the central banks of the G20 nations had met. There was a committee on this, there is another committee on cryptocurrencies and how to regulate them and all that. Now, they seem to be giving a recommendation that the multilateral institutions should reform. Now, second is the establishment of BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, this time, the BRICS summit, I think also 20th, is in Johannesburg, South Africa. And they are promoting it quite a bit to Africa itself and to African Union. Having said African Union, India is also pushing that African Union become a member of G20, just like EU is, also UN status, and so on. So the idea is that at the whole Africa level, irrespective of any differences of religion and ideology, they are represented. And similarly, the President Ramaphosa is promoting the idea of BRICS to the African nations and also inviting African Union, which India has supported. Now, otherwise, the influence is almost the same. National Development Bank, like World Bank, has been formed by them, contributing $20 billion each, so $100 billion in starting equity. Most of that now has already been invested in very good projects and also a larger number of projects. So the NDB is now ready for a takeoff. If there are more members. Now, some countries like Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, and Egypt have already become members of the National Development Bank. Now, if you go back to Bretton Woods time, 1945 or so, that time very few countries had joined, and basically they were European countries. Then European Union was formed kind of as a counterbalance to USA with only 6 members. So if BRICS had 5 members to start with, And now there are almost 20 to 30 to 40 applications as the numbers keep on going as we get closer to the summit in late August. Our Prime Minister has already said that he will be going. The Russian President would participate virtually throughout the summit. Most likely, Mr. Xi, the Chinese President, will also be going along with others, and there is a provision for invited members too. So G20 on one side, pushing on certain things, and then BRICS becoming a medium because now they already have their own bank to be able to support the infrastructure projects. And China also has its BRI, which is spending already spent about 70 billion odd in, no, sorry, far more, about $1 trillion. $70 billion is in Pakistan alone for the infrastructure projects. So now this is the geopolitical environment. What does it create? It creates opportunities all around. Of course, they will create impact on some other people whose logistics would become inefficient compared to them. So one project which we have to look for is the Chabahar project, which is Chabahar is in Iran. It is part of the old Persian corridor concept of 200, 300 years ago. And India is an active participant during Mr. Vajpayee's time. They signed up ISRTC